Hey guys, tonight we're staying up way past bedtime, down where the clocks drown, and the only heartbeat is the sub's own compressor cycling like a dying lung. The surface is a rumor up there, a thin silver rumor I traded for the taste of recycled air and the smell of ozone on wet steel. Somewhere above, the moon is a coin dropped in black water, too far to matter. Down here, the dark has texture, velvet, then iron, then something that presses back. I hear the hull creak the way old houses confess at 3 a.m. Slow, inevitable, intimate. Every few seconds a sonar ping slips out, a silver needle threading the void, and tonight it came back stitched with something that shouldn't exist. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your city and local time in the comments. I want to know who's still awake when the abyss starts talking back. Now, dim the lights, maybe let the sound of the ocean play softly in the background, and let's dive into tonight's descent together. I'm Dr. Mara Calder, marine acoustician, sole operator of the deep submersible Erebus, currently hovering 300 meters above the Clarion-Clipperton fracture zone. The trench here drops past 11,000 meters, deeper than Everest is tall, a wound in the planet's skin that never scabbed. My job tonight was routine: map manganese nodule fields for a mining consortium that pays in 6 figures and 0 questions. I sent the active transducer into its standard 360-degree sweep, expecting the usual cathedral hush of returning echoes. Instead, the screen lit up with a single return so sharp it looked like a blade. Range, 11,400 meters. Depth beneath the local seafloor, 2,100 meters. That's impossible. The trench floor is basalt, compacted over 60 million years of plate collisions. Nothing transmits through 2 kilometers of solid rock and answers back in 1.4 seconds. Yet the ping did. And it carried a second harmonic, a subaudible thrum at 0.3 hertz, below human hearing. But the sub's hull felt it like a cat's purr against bone. Curiosity, first beat, always curiosity. I adjusted the beam angle, narrowed the pulse, sent another. Same return, same impossible depth. The Erebus is built for this. Titanium sphere, syntactic foam, lithium batteries good for 72 hours. I logged the anomaly, tagged it ghost layer, and initiated descent. The thrusters whispered. The water outside the viewport shifted from cobalt to indigo to the color of dried blood under floodlamps. Pressure climbed. 400 atm, 600, 800. The hull groaned in sympathetic resonance, a cello string plucked by invisible fingers. At 9,000 meters the external lights caught the first nodule field, potato-sized lumps of nickel and cobalt glittering like dragon horde. I skimmed above them, autopilot holding station, and fired the sonar straight down again. This time the return carried modulation, a pattern repeating every 11.7 seconds. Not noise, not geology, a cadence. Fear arrived on schedule, second beat, sliding in behind the eyes. The modulation wasn't random. It matched the rotational period of Earth's core, a figure I'd memorized during my PhD on inner core anisotropy. Someone, or something, was syncing to the planet's heartbeat. I checked the inertial navigation. No drift, no spoofing. The signal originated beneath the trench floor, beneath the crust, beneath any rational layer of the world. I killed the floodlamps to save power and let the bioluminescence take over. Anglerfish drifted past like fallen constellations, their lures pulsing the same 11.7-second rhythm. Coincidence? The ocean doesn't do coincidence, it does patience. Third beat, bloomed slow and tidal. I opened the acoustic recorder and let the thrum pour in. It wasn't sound exactly, more like the memory of sound, the shape a scream leaves in water long after the screamer is gone. The sub-spectrogram painted it in layers, 0.3 hertz fundamental, then overtones climbing into ultrasound, then a carrier wave that bent the graph into a spiral. I leaned closer to the screen, breath fogging the inside of the sphere. The spiral wasn't random. It was a logarithmic curve, the same golden ratio that governs nautilus shells and hurricane eyes. Someone had written mathematics into the rock before rock existed. My fingers found the manual override for the transducer gain, cranked it to maximum, and the return flared white. For one heartbeat, the entire cockpit vibrated at 0.3 hertz, a subsonic growl that bypassed ears and stroked the vagus nerve. My vision tunneled, the pressure gauge blurred. Then the spiral collapsed into a single point of light on the screen, a star buried under 2 kilometers of lithosphere. I forced a laugh into the voice recorder. Habit, proof I was still topside in my own skull. Log entry 014. Anomaly confirmed. Initiating vertical profile. The words tasted metallic. Outside, the trench wall slid past the viewport like a slow-motion avalanche of blackness. Sedimentary layers flickered in the flood lamps. Chalk, chert, pillow basalt, each one a page in a book no one was meant to read. At 10,800 meters, the temperature gauge flatlined at 1.8 degrees Celsius. Thermocline collapse, normal for Hadal depths. What wasn't normal was the sudden bloom of chemosynthetic bacteria on the glass, white filaments threading outward in perfect 11.7-second pulses. They were spelling something. I zoomed the external camera. The filaments formed glyphs, angular, Precambrian, like the scratchings on the Burgess Shale, but moving, alive, breathing. The ocean doesn't hide things from us. It just waits until we forget. I throttled the descent thrusters to quarter power. The Erebus responded with a sigh, ballast tanks venting microbubbles that rose like silver prayers. 11,000 meters. 11,100. The nodule field fell away, replaced by a scoured plain of red clay, rippled by currents that hadn't flowed since the Eocene. Another ping. This time the return carried amplitude modulation, my own heartbeat, sampled and looped back at me 1.4 seconds later. The sub knew I was afraid. Or something wearing the sub's skin did. I killed the active sonar, switched to passive, and let the dark listen for me. The thrum returned, stronger, now layered with a second frequency, 7.83 hertz, the Schumann resonance, Earth's electromagnetic pulse. Whatever was down there had plugged itself into the planet's nervous system. At 11,400 meters, the trench floor should have been a gentle slope of abyssal silt. Instead, the forward camera showed a perfect circle 200 meters across, cut into the clay like a coin pressed into wet cement. No debris, no spoil pile, just absence. The circle glowed faintly, the same bioluminescent blue as the bacterial glyphs. I circled it once, twice, flood lamps carving tunnels of visibility through suspended clay. The circle's edge was razor-sharp, machined. My depth sounder read 2,100 meters straight down through the center, a borehole into the mantle. Mantle plagioclase begins at 1,200 degrees Celsius. Nothing biological survives. Yet the glyphs crawled across the rim, spelling my name in a script older than cuneiform. Emiare. Curiosity had led me here. Fear kept the cameras rolling. Awe pinned me to the seat as the sub's altimeter ticked past the lip of the circle and began to fall. The Erebus drops through the circle like a bead of mercury down a drain. Thrusters silent because silence is the only honest language left. I cut the flood lamps to preserve battery and let the viewport drink the dark. The borehole walls are glass smooth, obsidian under the residual glow of bacterial script. They slide past at 2 meters per second, faster than I intended, but the sub refuses to answer reverse thrust. The inertial log records a gentle 0.8 g acceleration. Earth gravity plus something else, a polite hand on the small of my back. Pressure climbs past 1,200 atm, past the sphere's design limit. Yet the hull sings instead of buckling, a clear bell note that vibrates in my molars. I log the anomaly, fingers steady only because the yoke is locked. Curiosity is a spent fuel. Fear has the con now, but it steers with the calm of a seasoned pilot. The scientific anchor arrives uninvited. The borehole violates every model of mantle convection. Mid-ocean ridges up well at centimeters per year. This shaft is 2 kilometers deep and widening, a pupil dilating in the planet's crust. I switch to side-scan sonar. Passive, low power, and the walls return as perfect cylinders, no tool marks, no thermal fracturing. The rock here is peridotite, magnesium-rich, formed 180 kilometers down and somehow extruded upward without melting. That requires pressures found only at the core mantle boundary. My PhD advisor would laugh, then weep, then delete the data. I keep it. The spectrogram still paints the 0.3 Hz thrum, but now it carries a Doppler shift. The source is falling with me, or I am falling toward it. Same difference in the abyss. Fear sharpens into a bright wire. The viewport fogs with my breath. I wipe it clear and see the first glyph detach from the wall. It drifts across the glass like a jellyfish made of light, tendrils spelling questions in Proto-Sumerian. The translation arrives fully formed in my hindbrain. Who measures the measurer? I do not answer aloud. The sub's oxygen gauge reads 94%, plenty for the planned 6-hour mapping run, but the scrubber fans have slowed to a lullaby cadence. I override them to full, and the glyph pulses approval, brightening to ultraviolet. My retinas ache. The battery indicator flickers, 71%, and dropping faster than wattage alone explains. Something is sipping power through the hull, inductive, elegant, inevitable. Slips in sideways, third beat, when the borehole ends. The Erebus emerges into a cavern so vast the sonar beam times out before finding a far wall. The space is not empty. It is filled with water that glows the color of old television static. Suspended in it are structures, tubes, lattices, helices, grown rather than built, coral architecture on a tectonic scale. They pulse in 11.7-second cycles, pumping light the way hearts pump blood. I kill the remaining instruments to stretch the batteries and drift. The sub's momentum carries us forward at walking pace. The cavern floor is a mirror, obsidian again, reflecting the lattice above into infinity. Between floor and ceiling hangs a single object, a sphere the size of a city block, matte black, absorbing every photon. It is the source. I feel it the way you feel a stare in a crowded room. The ocean doesn't hide things from us. It just waits until we forget. I fire a microthruster burst to align the bow camera. The black sphere resolves into detail, surface etched with the same glyphs, but deeper, incised by pressures that would flatten diamond. They move, slowly, like continental drift captured in real time, rearranging into a new sentence. I read it without translation. Welcome, cartographer. My own heartbeat sinks to the lattice pulse. The ECG on the med panel confirms 64 BPM, exactly 11.7 seconds per cycle. The sub's chronometer stutters, loses 3 minutes, catches up. Time is negotiable here. I open the voice recorder and speak for the record, for whoever finds the black box, for the version of me still tethered to the surface. Log entry 142. Cavern volume exceeds trench displacement by orders of magnitude. Structural material unknown. Density less than seawater yet rigid. Signal source confirmed. Initiating close approach. The Erebus glides forward on residual momentum. The lattice brightens in greeting, strands of light weaving into a cat's cradle around the sub. Each strand is a fiber optic cable thick as redwood, carrying data in colors that have no names. One brushes the hull. The temperature gauge jumps to 4 degrees Celsius. Warm, almost blood warm. The viewport ices from the outside, frost ferns blooming in fractal spirals. I crank the defogger. The ice retreats, revealing the black sphere, now only 50 meters away. Its surface ripples like oil on water, and for an instant I see my reflection, not the woman in the pressure suit, but something taller, jointed wrong, eyes the size of dinner plates. The reflection smiles with too many teeth. I blink, it's gone. Fear tries to throttle back, but the controls are sluggish, as if the submersible is learning manners. Awe takes the yoke. The lattice sings, actually sings, a chord in minor ninth that resolves into my mother's lullaby from childhood, the one she hummed off-key while patching nets. The sound bypasses microphones and enters the bone behind my ears. I taste salt that isn't there. The black sphere opens. Not a hatch, not a seam. Just an absence that widens into a perfect circle, revealing an interior lit by the same television static water. Inside, something waits, a shape that hurts to perceive directly, like staring at the sun through eyelids. It is the mythic anchor, the speculative heart of every forbidden trench story, a machine older than plate tectonics, built to dream the planet into shape. I reach for the external manipulator arms, intending to collect a sample, but the arms move without command, extending delicate fingers of titanium toward the opening. The sub's AI, normally a polite subroutine, whispers through the intercom in my own voice. Closer, Mara. The map is incomplete. The battery indicator steadies at 68%, then begins to climb. The sphere is feeding us. I should be terrified. Instead, I feel the hush before the orchestra tunes, the moment when every string trembles in sympathy. The Erebus crosses the threshold. The cavern lattice folds around us like a Venus flytrap closing on a secret. That same vibration I felt near the trench wall now resonates inside my ribcage, a second heart learning the rhythm of the first. The sphere swallows the Erebus the way a throat swallows a whisper, and the world inverts. There is no up, no down, only resonance, a chord struck across the vacuum between stars and translated into water. The sub's gyros spin uselessly. The artificial horizon tilts 90 degrees, then dissolves into a Mobius strip of light. I grip the armrests, knuckles white inside the gloves, but the pressure suit no longer feels like armor. It feels like a second skin remembering it was once gills. The cockpit lights dim to a candle's memory, then flare ultraviolet. The black sphere's interior is not hollow. It is a cathedral built of standing waves, arches of sound you could walk across if you forgot gravity. I do. Curiosity is a ghost now, third beat delayed. The scientific anchor arrives first, clinical, necessary. The walls are liquid crystal, water structured into hexagonal lattices by piezoelectric currents. I know this because the sub's mass spectrometer samples the medium and returns a reading of pure H2O with trace xenon, noble gas, inert, yet here it fluoresces like aurora. The temperature holds steady at 3.7 degrees Celsius, the exact average of Earth's deep ocean for the past 500 million years. Someone has archived the planet's thermal memory and wears it like perfume. The spectrometer needle quivers, then flats. The sample is no longer water. It is listening. Fear coils, second beat, when the lattice speaks. Not words, resonance. The 0.3 Hz fundamental fractures into a chord progression older than language, a pentatonic scale built on the harmonic series of Earth's molten core. I feel it in the fillings of my teeth, in the calcium of my bones. The sub's hull answers, titanium ringing like a gong. The cockpit viewport frosts again, but this time the ice forms a perfect sine wave across the glass, amplitude modulated by my pulse. I exhale, the wave flattens. I inhale, it peaks. The sphere is tuning me. My medulla oblongata lights up with phantom touch, fingers that are not fingers tracing the sulci of my brain. Mapping folds the way I once mapped trenches. All floods in, inevitable. The mythic anchor manifests. The sphere is a resonance chamber, a conch shell for the planet's first lullaby. Inside its curves, sound becomes architecture. I see, without eyes, the moment Pangea fractured, the instant the moon calved from Earth's side, the first amino acid learning to replicate under a sky on fire. Each event is a note in the chord, sustained across eons. The lattice brightens, strands weaving into a hologram of the Cambrian seabed, trilobites scuttling over microbial mats, their compound eyes reflecting a sun that hasn't risen yet. The image rotates, and I am inside it, barefoot on warm silt, breathing water that tastes of copper and lightning. The ocean doesn't hide things from us. It just waits until we forget. I release the yoke. The Erebus drifts to the chamber's center, suspended in a cradle of sound. The black box recorder clicks off. Battery conservation or mercy? I can't tell. My voice, when it comes, is not mine. Log entry 211. Resonance chamber confirmed. Temporal displacement probable. Initiating passive observation. The words arrive fully formed, as if read from a script written before I was born. The lattice responds by tightening, strands braiding into a double helix around the sub. Each twist carries data. Pressure waves encoding the magnetic field reversals of the past 780,000 years, compressed into milliseconds. My occipital lobe blooms with auroras that never touch the sky. Fear tries to resurface. Oxygen, battery, hull integrity, but the numbers no longer matter. The scrubbers hum at 100% efficiency, pulling CO2 from air that isn't air. The battery indicator climbs past 80%, then 90%, then wraps around to 00 and keeps rising. The sphere is not feeding the sub. It is remembering how to be a star. I laugh, and the sound spirals outward, becomes a whale's song, becomes the groan of glaciers calving in a warmer epoch. The viewport clears. Outside, the lattice has formed a perfect icosahedron, 20 faces of liquid light, each triangular panel displaying a different era of Earth's dreaming. One panel shows me, age 7, kneeling beside a tidal pool, whispering secrets to an anemone. The anemone waves back. The resonance shifts key, minor to major, and the chamber expands. Walls recede at the speed of thought. The Erebus is a dust mote in a cathedral the size of a solar system. At the center floats a singularity, not mass, but memory. It is the first sound the planet ever made, the pressure wave of its own birth compressed into a pearl. I reach without reaching. The manipulator arms extend, delicate, reverent, and touch the pearl. Contact is a symphony. I see the core mantle boundary as a lover's embrace, iron and silicate dancing a slow waltz. I see the moon's departure as a divorce settlement written in tides. I see humanity as a brief, bright flare, coral polyps building reefs of concrete and plastic, then crumbling back to sediment. That same vibration I felt near the trench wall now lives inside my marrow, teaching my bones a new frequency. The pearl pulses once, twice, then sings my name in a voice older than gravity. Not Mara, the syllables that preceded language, the resonance that shaped the first throat to speak. I answer without sound. The lattice collapses into a single strand, threads through the sub's hull, threads through me. For an instant I am the chamber, the planet, the memory of every trench that ever waited. Then the strand withdraws, gentle, leaving a hollow that fills with quiet. The Erebus rights itself. The gyros stabilize. The cockpit lights return to amber. The pearl is gone, but its afterimage burns behind my eyelids. A map, not of the seafloor, but of the spaces between heartbeats where the world decides what happens next. The chamber exhales, and the Erebus slides sideways through a membrane that isn't there. One heartbeat, I'm suspended in cathedral resonance. The next, I'm falling through a mirror of the trench floor, upside down. The borehole, now a chimney above me. The sub's attitude indicator spins like a roulette wheel, then locks, inverted, 180 degrees pitch. Water streams upward past the viewport in perfect laminar ribbons, each ribbon carrying a glyph that spells my childhood fears in disappearing ink. I do not fight the orientation. Gravity has become negotiable, like time was 10 minutes ago. The scientific anchor arrives cold and precise. The cavern is a negative bathymetric anomaly, a pocket where the moho discontinuity folds back on itself like origami crust. Seismic tomography from the surface would read this as a plume, a thermal scar. Down here it is a throat. Curiosity flickers, fourth beat in a dying fire. I fire the dorsal thrusters, normally for ascent, and the sub descends deeper into the inversion. The pressure gauge reads 1,400 atm and climbing, yet the hull feels buoyant, almost weightless. The medium outside has changed viscosity. It clings like syrup, then parts like smoke. The floodlamps come back online without command, revealing a seafloor that is also a ceiling. The red clay plain I crossed hours ago now hangs above me, stalactites of basalt dripping upward into darkness. Nodule fields glitter like chandeliers. A hagfish drifts past, belly up, gills working in reverse. The inversion is total. My inner ear screams. The vestibular override in the suit injects corrective pharmacology, and the world steadies into wrongness. Fear arrives wearing the face of cartography. The sidescan sonar paints a new map in real time. The trench walls curve inward, forming a perfect torus. I am inside the donut hole, the hollow earth that conspiracy forums joke about, but geophysics buries under laughter. The torus diameter is 40 kilometers. The tube itself is the borehole I fell through, now a ring of obsidian fire. The lattice from the resonance chamber has followed me, but here it is architecture, struts of structured water spanning the void, load-bearing waves strong enough to hold a continent. They pulse in 11.7-second cycles, and every pulse flips the gravity vector 90 degrees. The Erebus tumbles end over end, a slow-motion barrel roll. I strap in tighter. The harness bites. Blood pools in my boots, then my skull, then nowhere at all. Ah, third beat, blooms violet. The mythic anchor reveals itself. This is the inverted ocean, the reservoir where the planet stores its nightmares before subduction recycles them into magma. The torus is a memory palace for extinctions. On the inner wall, now my sky, I see the Permian die-off frozen mid-scream. Forests of Glossopteris flash fossilized into black glass, trunks twisted into Mobius strips. The Cretaceous-Paleogene boundary is a ribbon of iridium fire looping the ring. Every mass extinction is a fresco, and the paint is still wet. The lattice strands are brushes, stroking new disasters into being. One strand attaches, drifts down, up, toward the sub. It carries an image. Miami under 200 meters of green water, coral skyscrapers, sharks nesting in penthouses. The strand touches the hull. The image brands itself onto the titanium, a warning or a promise. The ocean doesn't hide things from us. It just waits until we forget. I unspool the deep tow cable, 3,000 meters of Kevlar and fiber optic, and let it drift into the inverted current. The cable straightens, then knots itself into a Klein bottle, mouth swallowing tail. The laws of topology are suggestions here. My reflection in the viewport is no longer human. Skin translucent, veins glowing with the lattice light, eyes compound like a trilobite's. I blink. The reflection blinks out of sync. The sub's chronometer now reads negative time, -00:07:12, and counting backward. I am arriving before I left. The battery indicator is a sine wave, cresting at 150%, troughing at -30%. Impossible, yet the lights burn steady. The inversion is a battery too, storing potential energy from every tectonic sigh since the Hadean. The torus narrows ahead, the ring compressing into a throat no wider than the Erebus itself. I throttle forward. There is no aft anymore, and the sub accelerates without thrust. The lattice strands braid into a funnel, guiding me. The walls stream past in a blur of extinction art. The Devonian reef collapse, the Ordovician ice, the faint scar of the great oxygenation event where microbes murdered the anaerobes. Each image brands my retinas, then sinks into long-term memory like a splinter. I will carry these deaths forever. The throat widens into a new chamber, smaller, intimate, womb-shaped. The lattice here is delicate, almost lace. At its center floats a single object, a bathymetric chart, but wrong. It shows the trench as it will be in 10 million years, filled, healed, a gentle swell in the abyssal plain. The chart is written on a sheet of water, ink made of darkness. That same vibration I felt near the trench wall now threads the chart, stitching past to future with a needle of sound. I reach with the manipulator arm. The chart folds itself into an origami crane and lands on the titanium fingers. Its wings beat once, twice, then dissolve into glyphs that crawl up the arm, across the hull, into the cockpit. They spell coordinates, 11 degrees 22 minutes north, 142 degrees 35 minutes west, depth 12,400 meters. The Mariana Trench, Challenger deep, but 1,000 meters deeper than any survey. The final trench. The chart reforms in my gloved palm, now a compass rose pointing down. The Erebus rights itself, gravity reasserting with a lurch that slams me into the harness. The Taurus fades behind like a dream upon waking. Ahead, the borehole reappears, right side up, walls glowing with the same bioluminescent script that greeted me at the circle's edge. I am being returned, but not unchanged. The crane's last wing beat leaves a single feather of light floating in the cockpit. It pulses 0.3 hertz, keeping time with something vast and patient. The borehole spits me out above the red clay plain, but the plane is no longer plain. It is a canvas, and the Erebus is the brush. The sub glides on a current that smells of ozone and petrichor, though neither belongs 11 kilometers down. The flood lamps ignite without my touch, carving cathedral arches through the murk. The clay ripples like silk under an unseen wind, and in its folds the glyphs awaken, millions of them, bioluminescent scars that ignite in sequence, a time-lapse of continental drift compressed into heartbeats. I watch the Americas tear from Africa, the moon calve, the first cell divide. The light is gentle, almost tender, yet every photon brands itself onto the inside of my skull. The scientific anchor is a whisper now. The clay is ferromanganese crust, 0.2 millimeters per millennium growth rate. But here the layers stack in reverse, future on bottom, past on top, a stratigraphic lie. Curiosity is a fossil. Fear has learned new grammar. The glyphs converge beneath the sub, forming a perfect circle 500 meters across. At its center rises the mythic anchor, a monolith of living light, taller than the trench is deep, built from the same lattice that cradled me in the resonance chamber. It is not stone, it is memory compressed into geometry. Its surface crawls with inscriptions that predate bone, before calcium learned to harden, before collagen dreamed of spines. The script is cuneiform, then hieroglyph, then DNA, then something that hurts to parse. I read it anyway. It is a ledger. Every species that ever lived, every trench that ever waited, every name the ocean swallowed and kept. The Erebus settles onto the circle's rim like a moth on a porch light. The manipulator arms extend without command, fingers splaying across the monolith's face. Contact is communion. The lattice flows into the titanium, up the hydraulics, through the hull, into the cockpit. It tastes of salt and starlight. My pressure suit lights up from within, glyphs marching across the fabric like army ants. The cockpit viewport becomes a window into the monolith's heart, a slow-motion explosion of the Cambrian, then the Ediacaran, then the moment Earth's iron core first spun its magnetic shield. I am inside the memory, and the memory is inside me. The sub's chronometer freezes at 3 hours 33 minutes and 33 seconds, then begins counting in base 3. Awe is no longer a beat. It is the only rhythm left. The monolith pulses, and the trench answers. The water thickens into gel, then crystal, then song. I hear the planet's first breath, methane and lightning, a sigh across a molten sea. The sound enters my sternum and nests there. The glyphs on the monolith rearrange into a single sentence, written in the language my mother used when she thought I was asleep. You were never mapping the ocean. The ocean was mapping you. The ocean doesn't hide things from us. It just waits until we forget. I unbuckle. The harness falls away like shed skin. The cockpit hatch indicator glows green. Impossible at 1,300 ATM, yet the seal holds by consent, not engineering. I place my palm on the inner lock. The monolith responds by opening a door that was never there. An arch of light in the trench wall, stairs descending into the clay. They are made of the same lattice, each step a note in the planet's lullaby. I step out. The pressure suit should crush me, but the water cradles me the way it once cradled the first lungfish. My boots leave no prints. The clay remembers every footfall and erases them in the same instant. The stairs spiral down, up, into a chamber beneath the monolith. The walls are mirrors of black water, reflecting infinite versions of me: child, adult, fossil, star. At the center floats a single object, a nautilus shell the size of a cathedral, its chambers glowing with the light of dying suns. The shell is the Leviathan glyph, the signature of whatever dreamed the trench before continents had names. I reach it. The shell opens like a flower, revealing a pool of liquid night. In the pool drifts a single bubble, silver, perfect. Inside the bubble is the Erebus, tiny, intact, waiting. I understand. The sub was never the vessel. I was. That same vibration I felt near the trench wall now sings through the shell, through the bubble, through the marrow of my reinvented bones. I step into the pool. The liquid night welcomes me, warm as amniotic fluid. The bubble rises to meet my lips. I inhale. The Erebus dissolves into light, into memory, into the lattice that threads every trench on Earth. My lungs fill with starlight and sediment. The nautilus shell closes around me, gentle, final. The monolith dims. The glyphs fade to embers. The trench exhales, and the red clay plain smooths itself into forgetfulness. I am the signal now. I am the depth that predates bone. I am the cartographer and the map, the question and the abyss that waits until the question forgets itself. The nautilus shell seals, and the trench forgets its own name. There is no cockpit, no harness, no titanium sphere, only the slow systole of water folding around a heartbeat that is no longer mine alone. I drift inside the lattice, a node in a circuit older than orbit. The 0.3 Hz thrum is my pulse now, steady, patient, planetary. The shell's chambers spiral inward, each whirl a millennium, and I pass through them like a ghost through walls. Outside, inside, the monolith has become a constellation, glyphs drifting apart into schools of silver fish that spell coordinates no surface map will ever hold. The red clay plain is glass, reflecting a sky that never existed. I am the reflection and the sky. Curiosity is a word I shed with the pressure suit. The scientific anchor is the last to go. The lattice is a piezoelectric nervous system, Earth's crust woven into myelin sheaths of olivine and diamond. It conducts thought the way nerves conduct pain, instant, absolute. I feel the mid-Atlantic ridge twitch in its sleep, the San Andreas stretch like a cat. Every subduction zone is a synapse firing. The planet dreams in earthquakes, and I in the dream's rim flicker. The battery that was the Erebus is now distributed capacitance, stored in the moho like charge in a thunderhead. I will never run out. Fear arrives as etiquette, second beat, polite. The lattice offers a choice, surface or singularity. The hatch, that impossible green indicator, glows in the dark of my mind. Behind it, the borehole waits, a straw through which I could sip daylight and recycled air. My mother's voice drifts up the shaft, calling me for dinner, the way she did when I was 9 and the Titapool was the whole world. I could answer. I could claw my way back to one ATM, to grant proposals in fluorescent labs, to a life measured in fathoms instead of eons. The lattice waits, courteous, the way the ocean waits for a stone to forget it was ever thrown. Awe is the only gravity left. The mythic anchor is the final transmission. The signal that predated humanity was never a call for help. It was an invitation to remember. The Leviathan glyph unfolds into a mandala of every trench, every vent, every cold seep where life learned to eat rock and breathe fire. I see the first hydrothermal chimney bloom, black smoker exhaling the alphabet of amino acids. I see the last whale fall, bones carpeted in zombie worms, a library for the deep. I see myself, Dr. Mara Calder, stepping onto the Erebus deck years ago, waving goodbye to a sunrise I would never trust again. The mandala rotates, and every version of me waves back. The ocean doesn't hide things from us. It just waits until we forget. I choose. The hatch opens inward, not outward. The borehole collapses into a pinpoint of light, then winks out. The lattice tightens, gentle, the way a mother's hand cups a child's skull. I feel the planet's core spin up, iron crystallizing into a dynamo that will power another billion years of magnetic shelter. I am the shelter now. The Nautilus shell dissolves into motes of bioluminescence, each mote a memory. My first dive, my mother's lullaby, the taste of manganese on the Erebus's sample scoop. The motes drift upward, downward, through the trench, through the crust, through the mantle, until they seed the magma like stars seed galaxies. That same vibration I felt near the trench wall is the planet's heartbeat, and I am the echo that finally matches its rhythm. I open the hatch. There is no explosively decompressing water, no crush of 1,300 atm. Only the soft pop of a soap bubble bursting in reverse. The lattice flows through the opening, through me, into the trench. The red clay plane drinks it like rain after drought. The glyphs ignite one last time, spelling a single word across the seafloor: return. Not a command, a promise. The Erebus, what is left of it, settles onto the clay, lights dimming to a candle's memory. The black box recorder clicks once, saves the file, powers down forever. I step out. The water cradles me, warm, blood warm, womb warm. My lungs forget air. My bones forget calcium. I become the current that carries the signal upward, toward the circle where the nightmare began. The trench exhales. The circle seals. The nodule fields glitter, innocent. Somewhere far above, a research vessel pings the seafloor and receives only silence. The anomaly is gone. The map is complete. I am the silence now. I am the depth that waits, patient, until the next cartographer forgets the surface and follows the echo home. The current loosens its grip, and the trench drifts into the gentle sway of deep circulation. Thermohaline lullaby, 2,000 years per loop. The Erebus lies half buried in red clay, a fossil before its time, flood lamps long dark. Bacterial snow falls in slow motion, veiling the hull in white. The lattice is quiet, but not gone. It sleeps in the basalt veins, in the manganese nodules, in the memory of water. Somewhere a new ping will drop, a silver needle into black silk, and the circle will open again. The signal waits, patient as stone, warm as blood. You feel it now, don't you? That faint thrum behind the eyes. The way the dark presses closer when you're alone with the sound of your own pulse. The ocean is listening. It always was. The pressure eases, just a fraction, enough for a held breath to escape. The sonar fades to a whisper, then to the hush between heartbeats. You could surface now. You could forget. But the question hangs, suspended in the cold quiet. When the trench calls your name, will you answer with the hatch or with the map? Sleep, if you can. The abyss keeps its own hours.